5 years after Maya Chen died, Admiral Kethavar's flagship limped toward the Empire's homeworld. Behind him, 800 star systems burned with fires that would never go out. Ahead of him, the impossible sight of Earth's fleet surrounding Zeftar Prime. The human ships were beyond anything the Empire had ever imagined. They were massive, some the size of moons, and they moved through space like living creatures. They seemed to bend reality around themselves, existing in multiple dimensions at once. They were beautiful and terrible, like angels of death made from starlight and fury. Kethavar's hands shook as he studied the sensor readings. "How many ships?" he asked his science officer. "Sir, our instruments cannot give an accurate count. They appear to phase in and out of our reality. Conservative estimate 10,000 vessels, but there could be many more. 10,000 ships. The entire Imperial fleet at its height had numbered 15,000 vessels, and most of those were gone now. Humanity had built a war machine that dwarfed the greatest military force in galactic history. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It appears to be coming from the human flagship." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human woman in her 40s. She wore a uniform that seemed to be made from liquid starlight, and her eyes held depths that spoke of seeing too much death. This was Admiral Sarah Mitchell, though she bore little resemblance to the astronaut she had once been. "Admiral Kethavar," she said in perfect Imperial standard, "you are the being who ordered the demonstration that killed Maya Chen." It was not a question. Kethavar straightened in his command chair, trying to find some dignity in defeat. "I am Admiral Kethavar of the Zephyrian Empire, and you are?" "I am Sarah Mitchell, Admiral of Earth's Extinction Fleet. 5 years ago you killed a little girl who was playing on a swing. Today you answer for that crime." Kethavar looked at the human woman and saw something that chilled his blood. This was not anger or hatred. This was something far more frightening. Perfect, absolute justice delivered without emotion. "The attack on your planet was a standard demonstration. We did not target children specifically." "No," Sarah agreed. "You targeted children incidentally, which is worse. It means their deaths meant nothing to you. Maya Chen died protecting her brother, and you saw it as acceptable collateral damage." Around Zeftar Prime, the human fleet began to move. Ships that had seemed stationary suddenly revealed they had been slowly tightening a net around the planet. There would be no escape. "What do you want?" Kethavar asked. "Justice for Maya Chen. Justice for every child your empire has murdered across the galaxy. Justice for every species you have enslaved or destroyed." Sarah's image was joined by another figure, a young man in his early 20s with kind eyes that held depths of steel. Kethavar did not recognize him, but something about his face seemed familiar. "Admiral Kethavar," the young man said. "My name is Tommy Chen. 5 years ago you killed my sister." Now Kethavar understood why the face looked familiar. This was the child who had survived the blast, the one his sister had died protecting. He had grown into a man, but his eyes still held the memory of that terrible day. "I remember the reports," Kethavar said quietly. "You were injured in the demonstration. Maya threw herself on top of me when your weapon fired. She used her body as a shield. Her last words were, 'I love you, Tommy. I love you so much.' She was 8 years old." Tommy's voice remained calm, but Kethavar could see the carefully controlled emotion behind his words. "Do you have children, Admiral?" The question caught Kethavar off guard. Yes, 2 offspring. "Do they love you the way Maya loved me? Would they die to protect you?" Kethavar thought of his children, safe in their homes on distant worlds, or what he hoped were safe homes. "Yes, I believe they would." "Then you understand what you took from me. You understand what you took from the world. Maya was not just my sister, she was hope itself. She was the future. She was everything good about humanity. And you burned her alive for a demonstration." Sarah stepped forward again. "We offer you the same choice we have offered every Imperial world. Surrender."
"And exile, or extinction. What do you mean by exile?" "Your species will be relocated to a single world."
"You will be sterilized to prevent reproduction. You will live out your remaining years under human supervision. Your empire, your culture, your legacy, all of it ends. But you live." Kethavar felt his world crumble. "And the alternative?" "Complete extinction. Every Zephyrian in the galaxy dies today. It was not a negotiation. It was a death sentence with one possible commutation. Kethvar looked around his bridge at officers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. He thought of the billions of citizens on Zeftar Prime below, going about their daily lives unaware that their species' existence hung by a thread. Why offer exile at all? You could simply destroy us, Tommy Chen answered. Because Maya would not have wanted us to become monsters. She died protecting someone she loved. We honor her by protecting those who cannot protect themselves, even if they are our enemies' children. But make no mistake, Sarah added, this mercy is offered once. If any Zephyrian ever again threatens human life, we will finish what we started. Every last one of you will die. Kethvar closed his 4 eyes and thought of his own children. What would they think of their father's choice? Would they understand that sometimes survival required the death of pride? How long do we have to decide? You have already decided, Sarah said. Your surrender was transmitted to us 3 minutes ago. Kethvar stared at her. Impossible. I have made no such transmission. Tommy smiled sadly. Admiral, we have been inside your networks for years. We know every Imperial communication code, every command protocol, every defense system. We could have destroyed your empire at any time. We waited because we wanted you to understand the scope of your defeat. The truth hit Kethvar like a physical blow. Humanity had not been fighting a war. They had been conducting an execution. Every battle, every defeat, every moment of hope, the Empire had felt was an illusion. The humans had been in complete control from the beginning. Your surrender orders have been transmitted to every Imperial world, Sarah continued. Your fleets are standing down. Your civilian populations are being evacuated to designated exile worlds. Your empire officially ended 17 minutes ago. On Zeftar Prime below, Imperial citizens looked up at the sky in confusion as human ships descended like gentle rain. These were not the warships they had feared, but transport vessels. From their holds came not soldiers, but aid workers carrying food, medicine, and blankets. The humans who emerged were not the monsters Imperial propaganda had described. They were teachers, doctors, engineers, people who had volunteered to help relocate an entire civilization. They worked with quiet efficiency, showing kindness to Imperial children and respect to Imperial elders. But every human bore the same mark, a small pin showing Maya Chen's photograph. Every human carried the memory of the little girl who had died protecting her brother. They were merciful because she would have wanted them to be merciful. But they were also watchful because they would never forget what the Empire had done. Tommy Chen stood in the transport ship that would carry the last Imperial officials to their exile world. Kethvar sat across from him, looking broken and defeated. Why? The former admiral asked. Why show us mercy after everything we did? Tommy looked out the viewport at the stars. Because Maya taught me that love is stronger than hate. She showed me that protecting others is more important than hurting enemies. I could have let humanity kill every Zephyrian in the galaxy. Instead, I chose to let you live because that is what she would have wanted. He turned to face Kethvar directly. But understand this. You live because of Maya's love, not because you deserve it. Your species continues to exist because an 8-year-old girl chose to die for her brother. Never forget that. Never let your people forget that. Kethvar nodded slowly. What will happen to us on the exile world? You will have everything you need to live comfortably. Food, shelter, medical care. But you will have no ships, no weapons, no contact with the outside galaxy. You will live as we choose to let you live. And our children? What of the next generation? Tommy's expression grew sad. There will be no next generation. The sterilization process is already complete. Your species dies with the current population. In perhaps 50 years, the last Zephyrian will pass away quietly in their sleep, and the galaxy will finally be safe from your kind. It was a death sentence delivered with infinite gentleness. Kethvar understood now that this was humanity's gift. They could have tortured the Empire's final years, made them suffer as Maya had suffered. Instead, they offered a peaceful end to a violent species. Years later, on the exile world of Sanctuary, former Emperor Vaxthul sat in a garden tending to flowers. His hands, once capable of ordering the death of billions, now coaxed life from soil. Around him, other Zephyrians lived out their final years in quiet contemplation. At the center of the garden stood a monument. It was not a celebration of imperial glory or a memorial to their lost empire. It was a simple statue of a little girl pushing her brother on a swing. Below it were carved Maya Chen's last words. I love you, Tommy. I love you so much. 2 years after Maya Chen died, Admiral Kithvar stood in his private chamber staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red areas showed territory still under Imperial control. Black areas showed systems that had gone silent. The black was spreading like a disease. Sir, his aide entered nervously. We have lost contact with the 7th Fleet. Kethvar did not turn around. How many ships? 300 vessels, sir. They were conducting standard pacification operations in the Kepler sector. All communications ceased 4 days ago. Send scouts to investigate. Sir, we sent scouts. They found debris, Imperial debris. The fleet appears to have been completely destroyed. Now Kethvar turned. In 2 years, his appearance had changed dramatically. His once proud posture had become hunched. His 4 eyes showed constant exhaustion. The stress of fighting humans had aged him decades. Survivors? None, sir, but we did find something else. The aide activated a holographic display. It showed wreckage floating in space, but among the twisted metal were strange objects that seemed to pulse with their own light. What are those? We believe they are human memorial markers, sir. Our translation computers say they read for Maya in various human languages. Kethvar stared at the image. Even in victory, the humans remembered their dead child. Even while killing his people, they honored her memory. How many Imperial personnel have we lost in total? The aide consulted his datapad. Confirmed dead, or missing 2.3 million. Presumed captured 400,000. The humans appear to be interrogating prisoners for intelligence, then disposing of them. Disposing of them how? The aide's skin turned pale. We do not know, sir. No bodies have been recovered. Prisoners simply disappear after questioning. What the aide did not tell Admiral Kethvar was what they had learned from escaped prisoners. Stories that were so horrible the intelligence division had classified them as psychological warfare fiction. Stories of humans who had learned to keep Imperial prisoners alive for weeks while extracting information. Stories of humans who sang lullabies while performing experiments. Stories of human children who watched the interrogations and asked innocent questions about alien anatomy. But these stories were not fiction. In a hidden facility on the dark side of Earth's moon, Commander Zhang Wei walked through corridors lined with cells. Each cell contained Imperial prisoners in various stages of what humans politely called information extraction. Zhang had changed since his days as a professor. His body had been modified with alien technology, stronger bones, enhanced reflexes, improved healing. His mind had been altered too, stripped of inconvenient emotions like mercy and guilt. He stopped at one cell where a captured Imperial officer lay strapped to a medical table. The creature had been there for 3 weeks, kept alive by human medical technology while gradually being taken apart and studied. Good morning, Commander Yextal, Zhang said pleasantly. Are you ready to continue our discussion about Imperial fleet movements? The alien's eyes showed madness now. 3 weeks of careful torture had broken its mind, but humans had learned to repair psychological damage just enough to continue their work. Please, it whispered in Imperial standard. Just kill me. Zhang smiled. Oh, we will. Eventually, but first, you are going to help us understand how your people think, how you make decisions, how you feel pain. He activated a holographic display showing Maya Chen's last moments. You see, Commander, we want to make sure that when we kill your species, we do it in a way that hurts the most. We want every Imperial citizen to experience what that little girl felt when your weapon burned her alive. The alien began to sob. Zhang watched with clinical interest. Human psychologists had determined that prolonged exposure to their victims' suffering was the most effective way to break Imperial resistance. Now let us talk about the defensive systems around your homeworld. Meanwhile, in the Imperial capital city of Zeftar Prime, panic was spreading among the civilian population. Reports of human attacks had been censored for months, but truth had a way of leaking out. Citizens whispered stories of entire Imperial colonies found empty, their populations vanished. They spoke in hushed voices about human ships that could appear anywhere, anytime. Emperor Vaxthul, ruler of 847 star systems, sat in his throne room reading reports that grew worse each day. His military advisors stood before him, their faces grim. Your Majesty, said General Korthvan, we must consider negotiating with the humans. Our losses are becoming unsustainable. The Emperor's face darkened. Negotiate? With primitives? The Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. Sir, Respectfully, these humans are no longer primitive. They have somehow advanced their technology by centuries in just 2 years. Their ships are faster than ours, their weapons more powerful, their tactics more sophisticated. Impossible. They were using chemical rockets 2 years ago. General Korthfan activated a holographic display showing recent battle footage. Imperial ships, pride of the galaxy's most advanced civilization, were being torn apart by sleek human vessels that moved like living things. Your Majesty, watch how they fight. They do not follow any military doctrine we understand. They take no prisoners except for interrogation. They show no mercy to wounded enemies. They seem to have no fear of death. The Emperor studied the footage. In one scene, a damaged human ship rammed an Imperial battlecruiser rather than retreat. The human vessel was destroyed, but so was the much larger Imperial ship. They are insane, he muttered. No, sir, they are something worse. They are focused. Every action, every strategy, every sacrifice serves one purpose: to eliminate us completely. The Emperor dismissed his generals and sat alone in his throne room. For the first time in his long life, he felt afraid. The Empire had conquered hundreds of species, but none had ever fought back like this. None had ever shown such single-minded determination to destroy their conquerors. On Earth, the transformation of human society continued. Children who should have been playing with toys instead learned to identify Imperial ship classes. Teenagers, who should have been worried about school dances, instead trained with weapons designed to kill aliens. In a school in Tokyo, 10-year-old Kenji Nakamura stood before his class giving a presentation. On the wall behind him was a diagram of Imperial anatomy, showing weak points and vital organs. The Zephyrian respiratory system has 3 primary chambers, Kenji explained to his classmates. A puncture wound here, here, or here will cause death within minutes. Remember, they killed Maya Chen, so we must learn how to kill them. His teacher, Mrs. Yamamoto, nodded approvingly. She had been horrified by such lessons at first, but that was before she had seen the footage of Maya's death. Now she understood that human children needed to learn these things. The galaxy was not safe for innocents anymore. In the back of the classroom, 7-year-old Yuki raised her hand. Sensei, when will we be old enough to fight the aliens? When you turn 16, Yuki, you can volunteer for the youth guard. Until then, study hard and remember what we are fighting for. The children nodded seriously. On the wall next to the Imperial anatomy chart was a photograph of Maya Chen smiling, her arms around her little brother. Every human child in the world knew that picture. Every human child understood what it meant. Back in space, the hunting continued. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Maya's Vengeance, flagship of Earth's extinction fleet. Her ship was no longer recognizable as human technology. 2 years of studying and improving Imperial systems had created something entirely new. The vessel existed partially outside normal space-time, making it nearly impossible to detect or hit. Its weapons could destroy planets if necessary. Its crew had been enhanced with alien biotechnology until they were barely human anymore. Captain, reported her tactical officer, we have located the Imperial 15th Fleet, 200 ships, heading toward the Proxima colonies. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Imperial fleet was massive, but she had learned that size meant nothing against proper strategy. How many civilians in the Proxima system? Approximately 12 million. Captain, mostly human colonists with some allied species. Allied species? Yes, Captain. Refugees from Imperial conquest. Species that have joined humanity in fighting the Empire. Sarah nodded. Over the past year, dozens of alien species had pledged loyalty to Earth. They had seen what humans did to their enemies and decided it was better to be humanity's allies than its targets. Signal the fleet. Standard hunting formation. We eliminate the Imperial forces before they reach civilian populations. The battle that followed was not really a battle at all. It was an execution. Human ships, supported by allied vessels crewed by species that had learned to fear and respect humanity, surrounded the Imperial fleet. The engagement lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 200 Imperial ships had been destroyed. Not a single human vessel had been lost. Sarah stood on her bridge watching the wreckage drift in space and felt nothing at all. No satisfaction, no regret, no mercy. Those emotions had died with Maya Chen. Captain, her communications officer called. We are receiving a transmission from the Imperial flagship's escape pod. Put it through. The face of an Imperial admiral appeared on the main screen. He was injured, his uniform torn, his 4 eyes filled with desperation. 6 months after Maya Chen died, the first Empire border station went silent. Station keeper Zalmoth was monitoring the outer rim of Imperial space when his communications array simply stopped receiving signals from Outpost 77 Alpha. One moment, the routine hourly check-in came through clearly. The next moment, nothing. Probably equipment failure, he muttered to his assistant. These old stations break down all the time. But when Outpost 77 Beta went silent 12 hours later, followed by 77 Gamma 6 hours after that, Zalmoth began to worry. He sent a patrol ship to investigate. The patrol ship never came back. Admiral Kethvar received the report 3 days later. His science officer stood before him with a datapad looking nervous. Sir, we have lost contact with 17 border stations in Sector 77. We have sent 3 patrol squadrons to investigate. None have returned. Kethvar frowned. Pirates? Unknown, sir. There were no distress signals. No wreckage detected. The stations simply vanished. Equipment failures then. The outer rim. Stations are old. Sir, with respect, 17 stations do not fail simultaneously, and patrol ships do not disappear because of equipment problems. Kethvar studied the report more carefully. The missing stations formed a rough line along the border between Imperial space and the unexplored regions beyond. Send a full squadron to investigate. Heavy cruisers, not patrol boats. The squadron of 6 heavy cruisers left 3 days later. They were the pride of the Imperial fleet, massive ships with armor thick enough to survive planetary bombardments and weapons capable of destroying moons. Each carried a crew of 3,000 trained soldiers. They found the first missing station easily enough. It was still there, orbiting its assigned position. But when they tried to communicate with it, they received no response. The station's lights were on. Its systems were running, but nobody answered their calls. Captain Veltar ordered a boarding party. 20 Marines in full battle armor crossed from his ship to the station. They found the corridors empty and clean. The computers were still working. The air recycling systems hummed normally. The crew quarters looked like their occupants had just stepped out for a moment, but the 300 Imperial personnel who had manned the station were gone. Not dead, gone. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, no blood, nothing. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. Captain, reported Sergeant Kexelon over the radio, we have found something strange in the command center. What is it, Sergeant? Sir, there is a message on the main screen. It appears to be in the human language called English. Captain Veltar felt his blood turn cold. What does it say? Sir, it says, Maya sends her love. The boarding party returned to the ship immediately. Captain Veltar tried to contact Admiral Kethvar, but his communications were being jammed. He tried to jump to hyperspace, but his navigation systems would not respond. Then his sensors detected something that made his 4 hearts stop beating. There were ships approaching. Ships unlike anything in the Imperial database. They were sleek and black, almost invisible against the darkness of space. They moved without sound, without any energy signature his instruments could detect. They seemed to bend light around themselves, making them hard to see even when they were right in front of him. All ships, battle stations, Captain Veltar commanded. Unknown vessels approaching, prepare to engage. But before his weapons could charge, the unknown ships opened fire. The weapons that hit the Imperial squadron were beyond anything in their experience. Beams of pure energy that passed through their shields like they were not there. Projectiles that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The massive armor that had protected Imperial ships for centuries melted like ice in a furnace. Captain Veltar's ship lasted longest, but only because the unknown attackers seemed to be saving it for last. As his vessel died around him, his last sight was of one of the enemy ships coming alongside. Through his viewport he could see into the enemy bridge. The figures inside looked human, but their eyes held something that was not human at all. Something cold and calculating and absolutely without mercy. One of them looked directly at him and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Then everything went white, and Captain Veltar ceased to exist. On Earth, in a command bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Sarah Mitchell reviewed the battle reports. She had been an astronaut before the Empire came. Now she was something else entirely. 6 heavy cruisers destroyed, reported her tactical officer. No survivors, no escape pods launched. The operation was a complete success. Sarah nodded without emotion. How long from initial contact to complete destruction? 4 minutes, 17 seconds, Commander. Too long. We need to do better. Sarah turned to study the star map on the wall. Red dots marked Empire installations. Green dots marked human ships. There were far more green dots now than there had been a month ago. "Commander," asked her communications officer, "what should we do with the personnel we captured from the stations?" Sarah considered this. In the old world, before Maya Chen died, she would have said they should be treated as prisoners of war. Fed, housed, eventually returned to their people. But that world was gone now, burned away in the fire that had killed a little girl. Have they told us what we need to know about their military codes? Some have, Commander. Others refuse to cooperate. Sarah walked over to a photograph mounted on the command center wall. It showed Maya Chen pushing her brother on a swing, both of them laughing. Below it were the words, "Never forget, never forgive. The ones who cooperate get clean deaths," she said quietly. "The ones who refuse, let them think about Maya Chen while they decide if they want to change their minds." Her officers nodded and left to carry out her orders. Sarah remained alone with the photograph. She remembered the old Sarah Mitchell, the one who had dreamed of exploring space peacefully, making contact with alien civilizations, learning about the wonders of the universe. That Sarah had died in a schoolyard in Montana, along with 47 children and one little girl's innocence. This new Sarah had been born in the fire of human rage. She was harder, colder, infinitely more dangerous. She was what humanity became when its children were murdered. "Dr. Vasquez to Command Center," came a voice over the intercom. "This is Mitchell. Go ahead, Elena." "Sarah, we have finished the new engine tests. The Reaper-class ships are ready for long-range operations." Sarah smiled, and like Captain Veltar had observed, it was not a friendly smile. "How long to reach the Empire's home system?" "With the new drives, 6 months, maybe 5 if we push. The engine's hard." "Then start the countdown, Elena. It is time to pay Admiral Kethavar a personal visit." Across human space, similar conversations were taking place. Earth had not just built new ships, it had built new humans to crew them. Men and women who had volunteered to become something other than what they had been. Something designed for one purpose only: to make sure Maya Chen's death was avenged. They called themselves the Shepherds because they protected human children. But the Empire would learn to call them something else. The Empire would learn to call them death. Captain Zhang Wei had been a linguistics professor at Beijing University before the Empire came. He had spent his life studying languages, learning how different species communicated. Now he put those skills to a different use. He stood in the medical bay of his ship, the UES Silent Tears, looking down at an Imperial prisoner. The alien was strapped to a medical table, conscious but unable to move. Sensors monitored its vital signs. "I know you can understand me," Zhang said in perfect Imperial standard. "Your species has built-in translation abilities. So let me explain what is going to happen." The Imperial soldier tried to speak, but the drugs in its system prevented it from making more than weak sounds. "You're going to tell me everything about your military communications, ship movements, patrol schedules, command codes, everything." Zhang picked up a medical scanner and ran it over the alien's head. "This device can read the electrical patterns in your brain. When you lie, I will know. When you try to hide information, I will know." The alien's eyes showed fear now. This was not how primitive species were supposed to behave. They were supposed to be merciful to prisoners. "You see, my friend, we learned something important about your people from the station crews we captured. You are all individuals. You care about yourselves, about your own survival. That makes you weak." Zhang leaned closer to the prisoner. "We humans are different now. We do not care about ourselves anymore. We care about one thing: making sure no alien ever hurts human children again. That makes us very, very dangerous." He activated the medical scanner. "Now, shall we begin with your patrol schedules, or would you prefer I start by showing you what we learned about Imperial anatomy from your friends?" The alien began talking immediately. Similar interrogations were taking place on dozens of human ships scattered throughout Imperial space. The Empire's military secrets were being extracted one by one, piece by piece. Human intelligence officers trained in techniques that would have horrified their former selves worked with mechanical efficiency. They were no longer bound by concepts like mercy or prisoner rights. Maya Chen had not been shown mercy. Tommy Chen had not been protected by rights. 3 days after Maya Chen died, the world changed forever. In New York, the United Nations building buzzed with activity. Diplomats who had not spoken to each other in years sat at the same table. The Russian ambassador shook hands with the Ukrainian ambassador. The Indian representative shared tea with the Pakistani delegate. They all stared at the same photograph on the wall. Maya Chen smiling in her school picture, her arms around her little brother. She was just a baby, whispered the French ambassador, tears in her eyes. They are all just babies, replied the Chinese delegate, and now we must protect them all. Secretary General Maria Santos stood at the head of the table. She had been trying to bring world peace for 20 years. Now it had happened overnight, but not the way she had ever imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, we are no longer representatives of different countries. We are representatives of the human species, and our species is at war. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory beneath CERN in Switzerland, Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 72 hours. Her eyes were red, and her hands shook from too much coffee, but her mind was sharper than it had ever been. Around her, the greatest scientists on Earth worked with desperate focus. I need more data on their propulsion system, she called out to her team. How do their ships move faster than light? Dr. James Wright, a British physicist, looked up from his computer. Elena, according to these readings from their ship fragments, they are using some kind of space-time manipulation. It should be impossible, with our current understanding of physics. Elena slammed her hand on the table. Then our understanding is wrong. They killed Maya Chen with technology we do not have. We need that technology. We need it now. She walked over to a large screen showing the molecular structure of the Empire's metal. Look at this. See how the atoms are arranged? It is not just stronger than our steel. It exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. No wonder their ships can travel faster than light. A young scientist named Dr. Kim approached her carefully. Elena, even if we figure out how it works, it will take us years to build ships like theirs. Elena turned to face her team. Her eyes held a fire that made them all step back. Years? She said quietly. Dr. Kim, show me the picture again, the one of Maya protecting her brother. Kim pulled up the photograph on his tablet. Maya's small body covering Tommy, her face showing love and determination even as death approached. That little girl had 3 seconds to make a choice. Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. 3 seconds to decide between running away or staying to save her brother. She chose to die for someone she loved. And you think we cannot work fast enough to avenge her? She turned back to the screen and began typing furiously. We will not take years. We will take months. We will work every hour of every day until we have ships that can catch theirs. We will sleep when Maya Chen can sleep peacefully in her grave. Across the world, similar scenes were playing out. In the Pentagon, General Harrison Pierce sat in a meeting with military leaders from every nation on Earth. The room should have been full of arguments and suspicion. Instead, there was only grim determination. The Empire thinks we are primitive, General Pierce said, looking at the faces around the table. They think we fight with sticks and stones. They do not understand what human beings become when our children are threatened. The Russian General Viktor Petrov nodded. In my country, we have a saying, do not wake the bear while it sleeps. These aliens have woken something much more dangerous than a bear. General Li from China leaned forward. My daughter is 8 years old, the same age as Maya Chen. When I look at her sleeping, I see Maya's face. I see what those monsters did to an innocent child. And what do you want to do about it? Asked General Pierce. General Li's expression grew cold. I want to make sure no alien ever hurts another human, child, ever, even if it means killing every last one of them. Around the table, every head nodded in agreement. These were military leaders who had spent their careers preparing to fight each other. Now they were united by something stronger than any treaty or alliance. They were united by the image of a little girl dying to save her brother. In hospitals around the world, doctors worked to treat the surviving children from Clearwater. Most of them would recover from their physical wounds, but the emotional damage would last forever. Tommy Chen was still in intensive care, asking for his sister every time he woke up. Dr. Sarah Martinez had been Tommy's doctor since the day he arrived. She had seen many injured children in her career, but Tommy was different. When the nurses told him that Maya was gone, he did not scream or cry like most children would. Instead, he became very quiet and very serious. Doctor, he said in his small voice, Maya saved me because she loved me, right? Yes, sweetheart, Dr. Martinez replied. She loved you very much. Tommy nodded slowly. Then I have to make sure she did not die for nothing. I have to make sure no more sisters have to die for their brothers. The doctor felt a chill run down her spine. This was not the way a 5-year-old should talk, but then again, 5-year-olds should not have to watch their sisters die protecting them. Around the world, human behavior was changing in ways that puzzled the Empire's observers. Crime rates dropped to almost zero overnight. People stopped arguing about politics and religion. Factories that had made toys and cars began making different things that looked suspiciously like weapons and ship parts. Admiral Kethvar watched the reports from his flagship with growing confusion. "What are they doing down there?" he asked his science officer. "Sir, it appears that human society has undergone rapid reorganization. They have stopped their internal conflicts and are working together on unknown projects." Kethvar made his laughing sound again, but it did not sound as confident as before. "They are probably building monuments to surrender. Primitive species often do this when they accept defeat," but his science officer looked worried. "Sir, our surveillance shows them working with fragments of our technology. They seem to be trying to understand our systems." "Impossible," Kethvar replied. "They are centuries behind us technologically. They could not understand our most basic systems, let alone reproduce them." However, in her laboratory, Dr. Elena Vasquez was proving him wrong. She had been staring at the same equation for 6 hours straight. Suddenly her eyes widened. "That is it," she shouted. "I understand now. Their faster-than-light travel does not break the laws of physics. It bends them." She began writing frantically on the whiteboard. "Space and time are like a sheet of paper. We have been trying to punch holes through the paper to get from one place to another. But they fold the paper so that two distant points touch each other." Dr. Wright rushed over to look at her equations. "Elena, this is brilliant. But the amount of energy required would be enormous." "Then we build enormous engines," Elena replied without hesitation. "We tear apart our cities if we have to. We melt down every car, every building, every piece of metal on Earth. Maya Chen gave her life to save one little boy. We can give up our comfortable lives to save all the children of Earth." As the weeks passed, the Empire began to notice more changes in human behavior. Their monitoring stations picked up strange radio signals, humans all over the world singing the same song. It was a lullaby called "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," but the words had changed. Instead of singing about stars, they sang about Maya Chen. They sang about her love for her brother. They sang about how she would never be forgotten. Most disturbing of all, they sang about how her death would be avenged. Children in schools learned new lessons. Instead of just reading and mathematics, they learned about the empire that had killed Maya. They learned to hate with a purity that frightened their teachers, but they also learned to love each other with an intensity that gave their parents hope. In China, a 10-year-old girl named Wei Lin stood up in her class and made a promise. "When I grow up, I will build ships that can catch the monsters who hurt Maya. I will make sure no alien ever hurts human children again." In Brazil, 8-year-old Carlos drew pictures of spaceships with weapons pointing at alien vessels. When his teacher asked him about the drawings, he said simply, "These are the ships that will protect Maya's brother." In Germany, twin sisters Anna and Emma, both 7 years old, practiced marching in their backyard. When their mother asked why, Emma replied, "We are practicing to be soldiers, Maya's soldiers." The Empire's psychological experts studied these reports with growing alarm. This was not normal behavior for a recently conquered species. Typically, primitive civilizations showed fear, despair, and eventual submission. Humans were showing the opposite, increasing unity, determination, and what could only be described as organized hatred. "Sir," the head psychologist reported to Admiral Kethvar, "I recommend we consider alternative approaches to human subjugation. Their psychological profile is unusual." "In what way?" Kethvar asked. "Sir, they appear to have bonded over the death of the child. Instead of becoming afraid, they have become angry. Instead of becoming divided, they have become united. It is as if the death of one child has turned the entire species into protective parents." Kethvar considered this for a moment. "Then we kill more children. Fear is the only language primitives understand." The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning. They were so big they blocked out the sun in 12 different countries. People stopped their cars and looked up. Children pointed from school playgrounds. Everyone took pictures with their phones. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship looking down at the blue planet below. His 4 eyes studied the readings on his screens. Another primitive world, just like the hundreds his empire had conquered before. The humans down there still used chemical rockets to barely reach their own moon. They fought wars with metal, bullets, and explosive devices. They were nothing special. "Sir, we have completed our scans," reported his science officer, a tall creature with gray skin and no hair. "The humans are a typical Class 7 species. They have basic technology and show strong emotional bonds. They seem to care deeply about their young like most mammals. Kethavar made a sound that was like a laugh in his species. Emotional bonds are weakness. Caring too much makes them easy to control. Begin the demonstration. Pick a settlement far from their major cities. Something small. We need to show them our power without damaging anything we might want to keep. The science officer's fingers moved over his control panel. I have selected a target, sir. A farming community in what they call Montana. Population 2,847. No military value. No important structures. It will be perfect for showing them what happens to those who resist the Empire. Down on Earth, in the small town of Clearwater, Montana, it was a beautiful spring day. The elementary school was having outdoor recess. Children ran around the playground laughing and playing games. 8-year-old Maya Chen was pushing her little brother Tommy on a swing. Tommy was only 5 and still needed help reaching the high swings. Higher, Maya, higher, Tommy called out, his legs kicking with excitement. Maya smiled and pushed harder. Hold on tight, Tommy, don't let go. Their teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, sat on a bench watching all the children play. She loved this time of day. The children were so happy and full of life. She never imagined it would be the last normal moment any of them would have. High above the earth, Admiral Kethavar gave his orders. Fire the demonstration weapon. Target the center of the settlement. Minimum power. We want to scare them, not destroy everything. The weapon charged up with a low humming sound. It was designed to destroy military buildings and leave everything else standing. The Empire had used it on hundreds of worlds. It always worked perfectly, but Earth was different in ways they did not understand. The planet's magnetic field was strange. The electrical activity in the atmosphere was unusual. When the Empire's weapon fired, something went wrong. Instead of a small, controlled blast, the beam became wild and powerful. It spread out across the entire town. Maya saw the light first. It was brighter than the sun, coming down from the sky like lightning. But this lightning was different. It was angry and hot and wrong. She knew in that instant that something terrible was happening. "Tommy!" she screamed and threw herself over her little brother. The swing chains were still in his hands when Maya covered him with her body. She wrapped her arms around him and held him as tight as she could. "I love you, Tommy. I love you so much." The blast hit the school playground with the force of a nuclear bomb. In 3 seconds, the entire elementary school was gone. The playground, the swings, the slides, the happy sounds of children playing, all of it disappeared in white fire. When the light faded, there was nothing left but burned ground and silence. 47 children had been playing outside. 47 children were dead. Maya Chen had used her last breath to tell her brother she loved him. Tommy survived because his sister's body had protected him from the worst of the blast. He was badly hurt, but he was alive. The whole world watched it happen. The Empire's own recording devices had captured everything. The video spread across every television channel, every internet site, every phone in the world. Everyone saw the moment when a little girl chose to die to save her brother. Everyone heard her last words. Admiral Kethavar watched the footage with satisfaction. The weapon had worked better than expected. The humans would surely surrender now that they had seen the Empire's power. He opened a communication channel to Earth. "People of Earth," his voice boomed across the planet in every language. "You have seen what happens to those who might resist the Zephyrian Empire. Your primitive weapons cannot protect you. Your governments cannot save you. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and your whole world will burn like that." Small town. He expected fear. He expected crying. He expected the humans to beg for mercy. Instead, something else happened. Something that made his science officers look at their instruments with confusion. The humans went quiet. All across the world, the fighting stopped. Wars that had lasted for decades just ended. Countries that had been enemies for centuries began talking to each other. Political parties that had hated each other for generations started working together. It was as if the entire human species had suddenly decided to stop fighting each other and focus on something else. In Moscow, the Russian president called the American president. "Did you see what they did to that child?" he asked. "I saw," the American president replied. "Every parent on Earth saw." In Beijing, the Chinese premier was meeting with his generals. "They killed children," he said quietly. "They killed children who were just playing." In London, the British Prime Minister was watching the video of Maya Chen for the 100th time. Her last words echoed in his head. "I love you, Tommy. I love you so much." All over Earth, parents looked at their own children sleeping in their beds. They thought about Maya Chen and how she had died protecting her little brother. They thought about what they would do if someone hurt their children. The Empire's monitoring stations began picking up strange readings from Earth. Human brain activity was changing. Stress hormones that should have made them panic were instead making them focused. Heart rates that should have been chaotic were becoming steady and determined. Blood chemistry that should have shown fear was showing something else entirely. Admiral Kethavar's science officer approached him with a worried expression. "Sir, the human response is not what we expected. They are not showing typical submission behaviors. They seem to be organizing." Kethavar dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "They are primitives. Let them organize their surrender. It will make things easier for us." But down on Earth, humans were not organizing their surrender. They were organizing something much more dangerous. In hospitals, doctors worked to save the children who had been hurt in the blast. In laboratories, scientists began studying the pieces of Empire technology that had fallen from the sky. In military bases, soldiers cleaned their weapons with a new kind of purpose. Tommy Chen lay in a hospital bed, his small body covered in bandages. He kept asking for his sister. The nurses did not know how to tell him that Maya was gone. When he finally understood, he did not cry. Instead, he looked up at the ceiling with eyes that seemed much older than 5 years should be. "Maya saved me," he whispered. "She saved me because she loved me." His words were recorded by a news camera. Like his sister's last words, they spread around the world. Every human heard them. Every human understood what they meant. The Empire had made a mistake. They had killed a human child. They had killed a child who died saving her brother. They had killed innocence itself, and every human on Earth had watched it happen. Now they would learn what humans become when their children are threatened. Now they would discover what love can turn into when it is pushed beyond all limits. Now they would understand that there are some lines that should never, ever be crossed.